What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the same. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. I am really excited about today's episode, and I'm here with my good friend, Dean Dutro of Worth eCommerce. And before I formally introduce him, Dean, I always like to think about what other episodes people should check out on my podcast based on today's episode. And Dean is a master, and his teams is a master at e-commerce, anything email marketing, SMS marketing. And you know, the ones I looked at are Natural Stacks. People should check out the Natural Stacks interview I did with Roy Krebs. I will say it's probably the best introduction I have over the past 10 years of podcasting. You will know what I mean when you check it out. I don't even want to ruin the surprise. It basically has to do with ESPN also. So check out that episode of Roy Krebs of Natural Stacks and how he grew that e-commerce business. And there's many other e-commerce businesses and softwares. And just to mention a few, we will get into that conversation. And before I introduce today, Dean, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And Dean knows intimately about Rise 25, but we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And we do that by helping you run your podcast. And Dean, you know this, I think by now, because I randomly text you and call you, but the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at a way to give to my relationships. And I've seen no better way to give to my best relationships than having on my podcast, profiling them, profiling their company, the companies I admire and the people I admire like Dean. So if you've thought about doing a podcast, do it. I think every business should have a podcast. Go to rise25.com, check out more, learn more, and we're happy to help. We've been doing it for a long time now. And Dean Dutro and Ryan O'Connor, his co-founder, they run Worth eCommerce, and they're a Portland-based email agency. And basically, they're email marketing experts that have helped grow over 700 online stores, including their own 2 stores, by the way. And ultimately, they help these companies turn their email list into an ATM. And it basically, they increase sales by sometimes 30% or more with an asset that you own. So unlike, as we know, Dean, you can run Facebook ads, you can, if people have Amazon customers, though you don't own any of that data, right? But when you have an email, you can deploy that over and over and over again to generate revenue. So they've had clients, I think there was a cake company, they went from like 100,000 a month to 300,000 a month and maybe beyond that by now. And 50% of that came from email. And, so if you are, and this is what I tell Dean, because I recommend people all the time to check out what you're doing. If you're an e-commerce company and you're doing over $500,000 in sales, okay, or more, they can help. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there with not just email, but text message marketing, which they also do. So we're going to dig into some, if you are in e-commerce or you know someone, you send them this interview because we're going to go talk about cart abandonment series, new subscriber series, new customer series. It's not just about sending an email, right? Dean, be like, oh, we just send emails. Like, no, there's actually re-engagement series. There's all these different things to also A/B test, and there's list segmentation. I can go on and on, but Dean, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeremy. And you run our podcast on the back end and have helped us grow that in our audience and gaining some great clients. So shout out to Rise and what you guys do. It's been awesome to work with you this last year.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And, I wanted to dig in first on people love software. People love tools. So I wanted to start off with some of the software and tools in the e-commerce space that you tout, that you recommend.
Yeah. So we built our business off the back of a software called Klaviyo, and they essentially, are an email marketing software or provider. And, what they've done over the last few years is pretty astounding in terms of when we started using them for our clients, they had like 400 paid customers. Now they have over, I think, 60,000. And so their growth has been insane. It's because it's so easy to use. and it gives you information that's useful and actionable, right? And a lot of the other ESPs, they give you all this information, or the UX sucks, or it doesn't have all the segmentation you can do. So Klaviyo is this robust program that is also easy to use, which makes it very unique from an ESP perspective. In fact, none of our clients use any other platforms. We stopped using MailChimp years ago. Bronto just shut down.
Really?
Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're done, and it makes sense because their whole system was, I mean, it was literally a dinosaur. They're named after a dinosaur. But anyway, so we use Klaviyo.
They're extinct now.
Yeah.
Terrible.
They're still growing and evolving. They have all these new features. We don't leverage their SMS just yet. They're still catching up to some other companies. We use a company called Postscript, and often also Attentive for SMS, depending on the size of the client. And they just have great customer service. One of the things I look for in software partners is, do they have good customer service? Can you get on the phone with someone, right? And that's really hard to do with most software companies. Klaviyo, Postscript, Justuno is an email capture and conversion pop-up software we use. They even have a dedicated Slack channel that they connect with us on, right? So you got to get with the software that have great customer service, because it means they're committed to you and committed to improving their product over time. So those three are like the ones I highly recommend.
Those are the big ones. Yeah. I mean, you say like Klaviyo is easy to use. It's because you guys are masters at Klaviyo also.
Yeah.
A lot of times people will get super confused with those things. But I want to dig into, we're going to talk about SMS. We're going to talk about email. And I would love to have you talk about just some of the series. I mentioned there's all these different types of emails that people should consider sending. Because I think some people have a notion of, well, you just go out and you send a broadcast email whenever you want. And you would, and most people who use email correctly would argue differently. So what are some of the things people should be setting up inside of their email to support and nurture their customers?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I will say, if you're not sending any emails at all, then you should just start sending campaigns, tomorrow to some folks. But ultimately, email is about sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And luckily in e-commerce, all that stuff is very trackable, right? So we base our conversations, our flows, drips, automations, everyone has different jargon for it. I like to call them flows, based off the customer lifecycle in e-commerce, which is very, very simple. You have prospects, new customers, repeat customers, what we call like your VIP customers, lapsed prospects, and lapsed customers. And for each of those stages, you can create, an email flow of 3 to 10 emails, depending on how advanced you want to get, that targets each of those. So it comes out to be eight flows on average. I call them the foundational flows.
There should be a book. I'm waiting for your next book, the foundational flows.
Just get some interviews and transcribe it. Said it so many times. But the foundational flows, what they do is they accomplish several things, right? So email is a combination of brand indoctrination, right? So letting people understand and get to know your brand, customer support and customer service, right? So how can you use email as a customer support tool that provides a really great experience as well? And then also letting them know about new products, sales, things like that. So you have to have a mix of these things in there. The sort of top 4 flows I would say people should get started with is get a welcome flow for prospects, right? So put people through a series of emails that informs them about your brand, because I guarantee they're price shopping and they're looking for indicators such as trust, social proof. Do you have good deals? Do you have high quality products? So whatever your sort of leverage is, use that. The next is the new customer email. A lot of people don't set this up at all, but there's something that happens when people purchase things called buyer's remorse. And what that means is you immediately regret a purchase you just made, right? Like, how many times have you been at the supermarket or purchased a car and you're like, oh shit, was this the right decision? I don't know if I should have done that. Like, was this impulsive? So you want to pepper people with affirmations that, hey, you made the right choice here. Like, and we're here for you if you need anything, if anything goes wrong. And then of course, everyone probably knows about this by now, cart abandonment emails, right? So these are people that are intending to buy, but something happens. I don't think I really need to talk about that. Everyone kind of knows what that is by now. And then a really powerful
I think, Dean, people, I mean, I was shocked by the metrics of cart abandonment. Like, I don't know, is it like 90% or 95% or something of they add it to their cart and then don't buy it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Like, I think it's like 74% of people that add to cart don't purchase.
Okay.
Now there's two different things to think about. One is add to cart, right? Which is you click the add to cart button and then it ends up in your cart thing icon. The other is added to checkout, right? So those are two separate things that often get confused. Your add to cart versus add to checkout or checkout started metrics, the conversions are going to be different because that checkout started is where they're putting in their credit card information, where they're putting in their address. It's a signal to buy, right? So you actually would have two flows. I'm probably getting way too technical here.
No,
right?
I think, no, keep going. Yeah.
I mean,
anyone, people are listening to this, they probably are, when you get too technical, it's not too technical for someone who actually has an e-commerce store and is interested in these things. We will talk about general business stuff on here, so you could stick with it. But I believe, Dean, honestly, for any company, this applies to any company. This is not just e-commerce, right? You should have a welcome flow. You should have a new customer flow. You should have if it's set up with the right email, like a cart abandonment, like someone, if it's a course, if it's a service, if it's something.
Oh, yeah.
So anyways, keep going with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly the point is the customer life cycle doesn't really change from industry to industry, right? But the tools change and how you can apply it changes, right? But if you have that foundational knowledge of this is what people go through, this is the average purchase time, this is the average repeat purchase, you can kind of make educated guesses. Because I think marketing is part art, part science, and it's always unique to your brand, right? But there's some foundations that run rampant no matter what. So anyways, 74% of people abandon checkout. And so you just want to follow up with those people, and again, you don't have to give a major discount, but educate them, provide good customer service. And then I like to use what I call a discount escalation ladder, which is we don't provide discounts until they're like, it's like a last ditch effort, right? Where it's like, we've sent them all the good information. We've done all the purchase objections. We've gone through the process. They've been to our site and like, for whatever reason, they're not buying, let's give them a discount. That's the approach that I like to take.
I like that. The
kill your margin.
The patented discount escalation ladder. You have a lot of interesting stuff in you. Well, it's interesting because we've experienced this as a customer. I have where I like it. I'm going to get it. I go in. It's amazing. I mean, talk about low hanging fruit. If you don't have a cart abandonment series, right?
Yeah.
It's someone who entered everything in there, went to checkout and didn't check out. So maybe their kid fell down the steps or something. I don't know. I mean, or whatever happened, they just had to go away. But talking about the discount escalation ladder, I've gone to add something to my cart. I'm like, oh, I got busy and I went off. I'm going to go back and buy it. And some of those companies sent me 20% off. I'm like, oh, good thing I waited. They sent me a 20%. Yeah. I was going to go back and buy anyways. But if they sent me, like you said, a escalated, different emails and just there was education information, that would have just reminded me to do it. And I would have bought it anyways, as opposed to listen, I appreciate the 20% discount. But then you also wonder, well, there's a trust factor there of someone just offering a discount right off the bat. I was like, well, should I have just waited? Should I wait all the time now for buying companies from this product? Because they're going to give me, so that could have a negative effect as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's that can have a long-term negative effect. But what's really interesting is that over time, you can create segments in your email system of discount purchasers and non-discount purchasers. So then you can start to target different people with different sales or product launches with either no discount or discounts based off their past purchase behavior. So over time, it should start to level out because there's going to be a large percentage of people that never purchase with a discount. we know that because if you offer 10% off, for adding your email in, there's only like 8 to 10% of people will sign up for that, which means anyone else that purchases isn't using a coupon code.
Some of the best, over time, I've probably interviewed some of the best direct response copywriters, direct response marketers in the world. Okay. And they always talk, Dean, about list segmentation, how important it is for list segmentation. Can you walk me through a little bit about what you're looking at? Because you're looking at the back end and you're looking at all these metrics inside of Klaviyo. What do you see as how people should segment their lists?
That is a very tough question.
Well, you mean you hit on it a little bit with, discounts. That's one way, you could segment and look at sending really customized messages or emails. So one would be, people who bought with a discount. What are the other kind of metrics or things you're looking at on the back end?
Yeah. So one of the key things you want to think about initially, right? Because you could segment a million different ways, right? So I really like to think about it from a 20/80 perspective and then a growth perspective of your brand and email list size. So what that means is when you're first starting, it is all about engagement, right? So who is engaging with your brand, who sometimes engages with your brand, who like rarely engages with your brand, and who has never engaged with your brand. I actually call them groups A through E. So group A are people who will open almost every email. Group B is like they open, every 2 weeks. Group C is once a month. Group D is once a quarter. And group E, you take them off your list. And there's actually a technical definition of engagement from Google, which is about 120 days. So if someone is on your email list and hasn't engaged with your brand, whether it's opened an email, clicked an email, been to your site, or purchased anything in 120 days, they're automatically considered unengaged in Gmail's eyes, right? A lot of people don't know this, but if you go to your trash and you search in your trash bin, you'll see emails you never deleted in your trash, not your spam, but your trash, because Google is basically saying, hey, you haven't opened an email from these guys in a long time. It's not technically spam because you haven't marked it as spam, but you haven't unsubscribed. Let's just put it in their trash. Right. And a lot of people don't know that. So you got to really be aware of that and keep that 120-day, segmentation in mind. So depending on there's 100 different ways you could do it, but a good rule of thumb is like, if you don't know, start with anyone who's opened an email in the last 30 days. See if your open rates are high, which would be 30% or more, 35%. Then once you send it to those people, expand it to like 90 days. And see what does engagement look like if you send to people who haven't opened in 9 days. Is it still 20, 25%? You go all the way until you're about 15% open rates for campaigns, and then you start scaling back because that's where it gets a little sketchy in terms of your overall deliverability.
So you look
so much information, but
no, I love it because you look at engagement first and filter first by engagement, and then there's other ways you can obviously filter and segment things.
Yeah, because it's about deliverability first, right? It's about building trust with Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, whatever email systems people use, because without that trust built, then your emails aren't going to succeed. The foundational flows also really help build trust. In fact, I say the foundational flows tee you up for success later because it builds trust, open rates, click-through rates with your subscribers, with Gmail, because it's very targeted. And then when you send a campaign, for Black Friday, your open rates should be higher and you should, make a bunch of money.
Dean, I love what you said about 80-20. I think about 80-20 on an hourly basis, okay, with everything. And people, and so I want to hit in, we talked about the 8 foundational flows. What stuck out to me like a bat signal was the VIP, right? Because if you think about 80-20, like 20%, people, first of all, I had Perry Marshall on my podcast. You should check it out. Yeah, he wrote the 80-20 sales and marketing book. It's a fantastic book. He was personally mentored and has a relationship with Richard Koch, who wrote a lot of the 80 and 20 principle books. If you check them out on Audible, but 80% of our sales come from 20% of our clients. I mean, it's just, the 80-20 principle, right? So the VIP, it could even be 5% or 95% of revenue comes from 5% of our clients potentially, right? So I'm curious on the VIP flow. What are some things that you find, how you communicate with those VIPs, or what do you do with those VIPs?
Yeah. So this is one of our, I think, unique flows that we build out for our clients that we've tested over time. So one is you want to start moving into text-based emails, right? And video-based emails. So typically what we'll ask our clients, hey, can you create just a selfie video of you thanking your best customers for being loyal, joining you on the journey, and show some gratitude towards them. And then hint that because they're a VIP, they're going to get special access to new product launches first, emails from you, et cetera. So I like to start with a simple letter from the founder and then a video from the founder, right? And those perform so well. They're usually, a paragraph, maybe two, no links, no sales, no language, and they crush it. Like they absolutely crush it. You could go a step further if you're willing to and identify your VIP customers. And we've got a couple of clients who've started doing this. I actually heard this from someone I had on a podcast. But if someone spends $1,000 with you or $2,000 with you, depending on your price, whatever your price point is, these people, they'll call those customers.
100%. It's like the lost art of talking to someone over the phone.
Yeah. And like that blows people away, and you never know who you're going to call or send a video message like that to, who may happen to have a large Instagram following or a large social media following, and then they post about it, right? So there's some, like, I call it like backyard marketing at scale, which is like when you're over barbecuing with someone, like you're wearing like a cool shirt, people are like, oh, like, tell me about that shirt. And you're like, oh, I got this from these guys. What if you're like, oh, I got this from these guys, and then they called me and thanked me, but then imagine that, with 5,000 Instagram followers or 10,000 or whatever. So
you just never know.
You just never know. Yeah.
I mean, they are your premium, they're your VIP customers, right? I mean, they love you the most. Obviously, they're showing it with their wallet by buying stuff from you. So, so if people don't get anything else out of this entire interview, like right now, you should probably, after this interview is done, listen to the rest of it, but look and see who are your best, and just give them a call, like say thank you and chat with them. It's like so simple, and it probably will take 10 minutes, but it will have a huge impact on them and your business. Right. So thank you for sharing that. I love that. The VIP. The next thing I wanted to ask about, Dean, is I wanted to kind of talk about SMS and email a little bit. SMS, like, I don't know, there's not a text that comes through that I don't see or check. Yeah. And I would think I would argue like you seem busier than me. So I would guess that you also look at all your text messages. So the deliverability and the viewing rate is huge. Talk about, there was a golf company. Talk about the golf company and what they do with SMS. Yeah.
So SMS is like, there's like a gold rush for it. There's a gold rush for phone numbers, right? Because people are starting to see the value of it, right? And if you get into it early enough, I think you're going to be positioned for long-term success with your customers before your competitors get in, because they're not going to want to have, 3 golf companies texting them. They're going to want to have one, right? And they're going to want to be loyal to them, right? So you got to get in early. But ultimately, like for these guys, we started text messaging for them about 3, maybe 4 months ago, 0 list. So it's an investment, right? And it's just like growing your email list in a lot of ways, but it's a little bit different than email. I think it's an auxiliary benefit that has a potential to be a main source of input from people. So for a couple of reasons, let me take a step back. For these guys, over 3 months, we collected 3,000 or 4,000 emails or phone numbers. And from that, we're making $30,000 or $40,000 a month from text messages. Wow. That being said, we're also sending emails at the same time we're sending text messages. So there's data out there that shows that if people see
there's multiple touch points there,
right?
Yeah.
So it's not 100% attributable. It could come from the email or a Facebook ad or SMS, but the more touch points you have, right, the more likely people are going to convert, which then increases your overall margins and creates revenue velocity. The hardest part about SMS is the character limit is very tight, right? It's got to be very direct and to the point. And a lot of people are unsure if they should prioritize collecting emails or collecting phone numbers. That's a big sort of hump that people have to get over.
Can you do both at the same time with an email opt-in capture or?
Yeah. So what I like to do is present the email opt-in first. A company that does this really well is Hydroflask. If you go to their website, you'll see how they build it. I think they use Attentive for software, but how they do it is, and I think it's genius, is they capture the email first, just like a typical pop-up. And then the next page says, oh, we also have this SMS program if you want news faster or better deals. Enter your phone number to join the SMS list. Then you capture both. But if they don't enter it, you still have their email, right? So now you're able to potentially collect two sources of data from them, and then you email them the relevant information. Now, in regards to SMS, right now you're going to have 99% open rates, right? In the future, I already know this because I've seen screenshots. I think we might have talked about it. Was that you and I talking about it in the mastermind? Apple is starting to create promotions tabs in their text, in their iMessages. It's in beta, but they haven't launched it. So in the future, it's gonna be like Gmail, where it's like your inbox and then your promotions, which makes a lot of sense. And why wouldn't they do that? And then I'm sure there'll be data on the average number of text message subscriptions people subscribe to. My guess, it'll be 6, right? So can you get on phone numbers early? Because I imagine, if you just look at your text message screen, you only see maybe 7 or 8 messages. You don't want them all to be from companies, right? So I think it'll just be a matter of how things look on your phone.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the incentives, Dean, that you've seen work with SMS? Because like you said, that one company takes you another page. I mean, I used it even with the chiropractic office I owned. If someone's sitting there, the staff would be like, if let's say they came in for a massage, be like, listen, if you want a discount off today's massage of $10, you could just subscribe right now. And you could unsubscribe at any time, but you will get the best deals. You'll get the best, the information first, et cetera. And because that is a valuable touch point, What are some incentives you've seen that work with companies?
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't have to be too different than email. I used to be in the camp that if someone's going to give you their phone number, then you should offer better discounts. I don't believe that anymore because I think it's a preference choice, right? What you're really offering is a preference. So your email discount should be the same as your SMS discounts, in my opinion. A lot of people started going, we got to collect all these phone numbers, so offer them better discounts. I thought that too, but it's really a matter of preference, right? And what I've seen is demographically, there are certain demographics that actually prefer text message. And you'd be surprised to hear it's often baby boomers. So companies
surprised
that target baby boomers, like this golf company, for example, they like texting better than email, right? And the other thing is the key to a successful SMS program is if you make it a two-way communication channel. So you need a customer service rep, or you can do it yourself if you just want to get started, where people can respond to you via text, just like they're texting a person. The people that do that are going to far outperform and get massive ROI, by hiring a person to field these phone numbers, because people don't really respond to promotional emails,
No,
when's the last
not
time
at all.
you hit reply to a Black Friday email? Never. Right?
No.
But if you encourage that on SMS, I think that's going to be an extra piece and layer of customer service that will help your brand grow.
So is there, and this is kind of a separate topic a little bit, but let's, when you go into a website and oftentimes people have a chat feature, right? A thing pops up, go, hey, how can I help you? Does the recommendation of the software you use and help people set up these flows for, use that type of technology? So like if someone enters in, or is it more like a lead capture where people are capturing that text message? Because when I picture two-way conversation, I picture that, that box shows up, whatever. There's tons of intercom. There's a bunch of ones, and you're typing in there. Does this also replace that from the web page, or is this just totally a separate piece from just an SMS perspective?
I imagine in the future it'll be a lot more integrated.
Yeah.
Right. But you can collect phone numbers and emails from those chatbots and send it to your software. But you have to still view it in another software. So I imagine in the future it'll be integrated. I hate chatbots because often they're bots.
Yeah.
And I have to wait on the website. I don't want to wait on someone's website. Like I want to send them a message and then hear back without waiting. So that's why I think SMS will
asynchronous.
Yeah, exactly. But I think those chatbots are still good. But SMS, because you don't have to wait on site is going to be the best route. Sure.
But from what you recommend is you're sending like broadcast messages or text messages, but it allows a two-way communication. So they can, not all of them will be like deals or sales. It may be just whatever, some kind of information and encouraging someone to respond back.
Yeah. And just like in email, your SMS messages, you can create flows. So you still target the same people with a slightly different, smaller message. And, it's very powerful. The receipt, people love the receipts on their phone, right? Just getting a text message saying, confirmed your order has shipped. Those perform really well. Sometimes you can add in a little discount here and there in those, but people respond really well to just seeing it on their phone. It's that peace of mind again, that buyer's remorse that you're tackling.
I feel like, Dean, this is, you could correct me if I'm wrong, this is also low-hanging fruit. What percentage of companies that come to you with email do not have text message at all?
Almost all of them.
All of them. Wow.
Yeah, I'd say like 90% aren't using text. And if they are, it's very basic.
That's shocking, right?
It's very shocking. Yeah. And I think it's because it's a hesitancy. It's that, are we intruding on people? Is there privacy issues? You want to be US based. And the United States is an opt-in culture, opt-out culture, but around phone numbers, it's a lot more restrictive. So they want to make sure you are opting in. So there's specific language you have to use on your website that to some people, they may think it'll hurt conversions or it'll look bad or whatever, but it's not a big deal, especially as it goes to market.
Is there a language that you found make people feel warm and fuzzy to give an email or a text? Like, I always think of not using the word spam. Like when you use the words like, we will not spam you. Well, that means we're probably going to spam them. I mean, that's what they're thinking, right? Yeah. Why using the word spam at all? So is there any language you found that is good to that is not total legalese speak, but is good from make them feel good, but sounds like a normal human being?
I just think using humor from your brand works really well. You're not going to trick people into giving you their phone number, you're not. And just being straight up like, hey, like you can enter your email and get a discount and enter your phone number and get a discount. Right. And you can make it look nice, make it humorous. And then there's specific language you have to use. Right. So you just use that and people feel safe. Some copy works better than others. Some design works better than others. I really like two-step opt-ins, which means you ask someone if they want a discount and they say yes or no. It's called a micro conversion. And by doing a micro conversion, you're more likely to get a second yes and a third yes, right? It's some psychology term of escalating yeses or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, Robert Cialdini talks about it in his book Influence. And I forgot the exact example, but they asked people to put like a small sign and then, or sign a petition, then they went back, and anyone who signed the petition, they want put a monstrosity of a sign. I'm butchering it. You could just check out Influence of Robert Cialdini, but it goes to your point. You get this small commitment, and then the next commitment, oh yeah, we're going to put a big billboard on your lawn. Is that okay? Oh yeah, sure. I already signed it, so. Yeah.
And we've A/B tested it. So we find that two-step usually converts higher. but not always, right? There's certain brands where it hasn't worked as much. I don't know why, but it could, it's always worth an A/B test.
I want to talk about email. So that's fascinating. Thanks for going down that path for the SMS piece. And let's talk about email. And we were talking a little before we hit record about how it has saved companies in some respects. And I didn't want you to tell me anything else because I wanted to hear it on here. But what did you mean by that?
Yeah. So there's this concept I've been playing around with. Someone's probably already come up with it, but it's the idea that if you're an influence, like if your brand has thousands of followers on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or other social media TikTok, like you're basically a rental business, right? You don't own any of that at all. If you think you do, you're wrong. And even your SEO, you don't own, because Google can change your algorithm at any moment and then your visitor count goes down to nothing. I've seen that happen over the last 6 years, dozens of times, where someone gets banned from Facebook advertising for zero reason, right? Especially during the pandemic. Like they cracked down hard on companies during the pandemic, and those companies, like if they didn't have an email system, they wouldn't be making any money at all. So what happens with email, there's two major benefits. One is that, and I would say this about any owned marketing, but specifically email, because you can send out promotions, is that it's a profit driver. So the cost to send 10,000 emails versus 100,000 emails is like $1,000 difference. Whereas the cost to drive 10,000 visitors versus 100,000 visitors is like $100,000 difference, I'm sure I'm butchering those numbers, but so what happens is over time, as you collect more emails and you engage with people, your cost to acquire massively decreases, which means your profit margins raise, which means you can invest in your front end channels again. The other piece is if your Facebook account gets banned or your Instagram account gets banned or Google changes SEO, you have a list of 50,000 people, 100,000 people, hopefully, that you can still send emails to and make money, right? And you'll probably be like, holy shit, I'm making a higher profit right now because I'm not spending any money on ads. So it's this interesting flip where sales go down, profit goes up for a momentary time, but it gives you enough space to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, I mean, also we've seen with a lot of these social media channels, the organic reach, even if you have 100,000 people or whatever, 10,000, the organic reach of those is just greatly diminished. It's a pay to play at that point. It's like, oh, we can charge people for this. So getting them off of those platforms and getting them into an email or text or whatever that you can deploy whenever you want is important. Talk about some of the things you've been looking at. I've been in the room with some of the top Amazon sellers around that they're all multi-channel, right? They have their e-commerce store, they have Amazon, they have, eBay, whatever it is. Talk about some of the stuff you're doing as far as Amazon sellers go.
Yeah. So, I used to be in the camp of like, you should own your marketing. You should get off of Amazon. You should get off of Walmart or whatever and screw them like they're taking your margin. But as I got more familiar with the power of Amazon and different sellers who are doing Amazon well, who often don't have a very big like Shopify presence, for example, or own marketing presence, you're starting to see a lot of people go omni-channel, right? And so right now we're testing and I'll probably follow up after this podcast in a few months with some results to put in. But ultimately, I have this theory and hypothesis that we want to use your owned marketing to create sales velocity for these other channels. So specifically Amazon, because Amazon is so huge. So if you think about it, the average Shopify website has a 3 to 5% conversion rate, which means 97 to 95% of people that come to your site are not purchasing. But I guarantee they're looking elsewhere, either at competitors or at Amazon for different pricing. They want 2-day shipping, right? So there's this thing called the spillover effect. And they either find you through ads, sometimes they find you through Amazon. So if you look at a product on Amazon, oftentimes people will search the product in Google to see if there's better discounts. And that's called
or
the spillover
to see
effect.
if they're legit. I mean,
Yeah,
they may go
legit.
Amazon Go. They go to the website and then they go back to Amazon to buy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of back and forth, and there's no way to accurately track it, but we know it happens, right? And you could ask people post-purchase, where they found you, and maybe you find a ton of people find you from Amazon. But what we're betting on is that we want to use Amazon's algorithm to our benefit, right? So if I have, 10,000 email addresses, let's say I send 50% of them directly. Let's say it's what's coming up. Mother's Day is coming up. Let's say I have a Mother's Day product I want to promote. I have it on Amazon, I have it on my store. Let's say I send 50% to Amazon and 50% to my store, right? And these are emails you've already collected. We know that the average Amazon conversion rate is 17%. That far outstrips any Shopify site by a wide margin. So if we send those 5,000 people, you can directly correlate, a boost in traffic of 5,000 to increased sales on Amazon, right? And then you can compare to see if the amount of sales catches up to the margin you make on your site. So that's one thing that's a benefit. And slow me down if I'm going too fast, because this stuff excites me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other piece is the long tail effect of sales velocity by using your owned marketing to send traffic directly to Amazon to increase your organic reach on Amazon, right? Thus lowering your ad spend, thus increasing profit, thus creating a cycle of growth, right? So I just went on a huge tangent, but basically the idea is this: Amazon rewards you for sending outside traffic to their site. So if you send direct traffic there and people purchase, you're going to show up in the rankings higher, just like you would in like Google, first page of Google, right? That should lead to more spillover effect, which means more people are going to go from Amazon to your site, which means you'll collect more emails, which then means you have more emails to send to Amazon, which then just creates this growth cycle for you. That's the theory. I think it'll take 3 to 6 months to really know if it's true or not, but there's some indicators that are looking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Dean, that makes perfect sense, because if you think about Amazon, right? When you send traffic to Amazon, and there's a couple things that obviously signal increased rankings in Amazon, right? Which is reviews and sales, right? And so if I'm Amazon, I want to reward people for sending people to Amazon, or even if you didn't, but you get like 1,000 more sales on that product, it's going to signal to Amazon, this is an important product. And like what you're saying is you may lose some margin if you send them obviously to Amazon or your website, but you could see a tenfold increase in sales potentially if you boost up and you're in the top page for certain keyword terms or that product, which would far outweigh the margin that you would gain by sending them to your website.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you can think about it as an investment, right, in sales velocity. And then a lot of those people end up buying on your site anyways, especially if it's a product that people like.
I've talked to some sellers, Dean, that said they put on their website, and I don't know, again, like it's something that you have to track, but they put on their website, this is the same low price that you'll get on Amazon,
Nice.
on their website. And they thought, they were kind of worried about it because they're saying, oh, we're also on Amazon. That may signal for them to go over to Amazon to buy. But what some people go to Amazon to find the lowest price. And so they found by telling them this particular product, and this particular person found by telling them on the site, this is as low as price that you'll get on Amazon. They just bought on the site and they didn't even go over to Amazon. So they said it increased their conversion rate tremendously by putting that on their website, which I find it could be counterintuitive. Like you're telling them you're on Amazon, they may go over and buy there. But
I think there's a big sense, people know how big Amazon is. And unless they're in a hurry to get something, some sort of like, product you need, like toilet paper or some sort of grocery or some sort of like, product that you just need quick, they're willing to wait and support these other companies. I think there's at least I feel that. I'm not sure if you feel that way, but I kind of get that sense from people I talk to. Even like my grandparents are like, I don't really want to buy from Amazon. Like, I want to go to the local shop and buy. Like, Grandpa, they're online. Like, you can still buy from them on their website.
No, totally. And you do, people are conscious that probably either consciously or subconsciously that Amazon takes a chunk and they just want to interact with that business owner to business owner and not like the big conglomerate. Dean, first of all, thank you. I have, I know we have a couple minutes left. I have a last question or two for you. But before I go into that, I want to point people towards to check out more. Check out worthecommerce.com. Check out what they have going on. Check out their podcast, the Relationship Commerce Podcast, and it's on their, you can go to the podcast page on Worth eCommerce and check it out. They have some amazing episodes with people like Amir from Habit Nest, Rob from Dutro Apparel, and many, many more talking about their journey in e-commerce and how they've grown. So I encourage you to check out those episodes. Dean, last question or two, I want to talk about you are really one of the sharpest minds on just business stuff and growing a company. And I learn a lot from you about how you lead the company and how you attract talent. And so I love to talk about a little bit about just the company and the culture. And you actually used to help recruit it. I mean, that's what you did. And so I love to have you talk about, attracting and recruiting talent for a second.
Yeah, definitely. And I've got some extra time if we do go over,
okay.
If you got time, because I think this is pretty important. And thank you for the kind words. I always feel like I'm learning as I go. And anything I've learned is through being in the fire, but also reading a lot of books and mentorship. So thank you for that. Recruiting. My first job out of college, I was a recruiter. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. It was for this large $1 billion company called Aerotech, and the owner owns like some football team, like the Baltimore Ravens or something. And but they taught me two things. They taught me how to recruit, and they taught me about culture building. And there's a reason why they're a multi-billion-dollar company, right? It was because of those two things. And sales, honestly. They're basically a sales engine and provide an amazing service for people, for companies. But they teach you how to recruit. They teach you how to talk to people, to ask specific questions, to see, what are their goals, where they want to go, and do you have something that fits with that? And when I recruit, when I first started in business, it's kind of a fail, right? Like the first business I started the whole idea was I want to travel, I want to work remote. I was with my co-founder, Ryan. We were like, we're going to live on beaches. We're going to drink beer. We're going to be in the sun, and we're going to make a bunch of money. And like we did all of that except make money. So
it's still a win.
It's still a win, but we ended up broke in debt, and I ended up living at my grandparents' house for like a year. And so did he after that venture. We were in like Thailand and Bali and Australia, and it was a wild time, a really fun time. But also very stressful because I didn't have any money. And which isn't new. I've been to that place before. But what I realized is that we didn't have a vision or a mission that would attract people, or values that would attract people that would want to work with us. It attracted the wrong kind of people, right? The sort of short-term friends and relationships, and then you move somewhere, you don't hear from them again. So I kind of went back to the drawing board and started talking about, okay, what are my values? What's important to me? What did I miss while traveling? And to me, that was community. And I come from a small business background. So my parents and my grandparents, specifically my mom and my grandma, both had their own businesses, and there were ups and downs with that.
What were the businesses?
My mom had an apparel company called Lipstick Whiskey. It's like,
sounds great.
She would like go to rodeos and stuff and sell like whiskey shirts and stuff. It's like got whiskey or got rodeo. And then my grandma was a kitchen designer and had a kitchen and design business since she was in her 30s in Santa Barbara, Alaska, and then in Bend. And so small business was important to me, but also saw the struggle with it, right? Like times are good, times are good, times are bad, it can be rough. And I always thought it'd be cool to help other business owners grow. And I found email. That became a way to do it. And so the mission became, how could I help small businesses generate more than $1 million in revenue using, email or SMS. That vision has changed a little, but that's still the core. I still like working with these businesses because a lot of people think entrepreneurs make a boatload of money. It's not usually true for a long time. Like you don't make good, unless you're a unicorn, you don't really make that good of money until you're 5, 6, 7, 10 years in. And so how could I accelerate that process for people? And that resonated with people I wanted to hire. A lot of freelancers. I worked at a co-working space, which had a lot of creative freelancers in Portland, and recruited my first almost 10 employees from there, and recruited them by just talking about what I wanted to do, like what the values were and what the mission was. And people latched on to that. And if you align your values with theirs and really dig into like what they want, which is usually growth, career opportunity, like a fun place to work, is like kind of like, what I like. And you don't really have to recruit, right? Like people will come to you, and that can spread in your job posts, the way you position your job posts. If you talk about mission and values, you could do an A/B test saying, here's the job, where you just list the responsibilities, versus here's our company, here's our culture, here's the job. You'll get like 10 times more people applying. So it starts there. But having that is really important, I think.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that you share that advice, because people often think of just kind of the nuts and bolts, put what's in the job description. But if you start with the mission, you're saying it's something people can get behind, and you'll attract even more people and better people too.
Yeah. And then they'll refer people to you, right? So, we went from 6 employees to 10 to 30 to 50 in a year. And, probably 20 of them were like referrals from other people. I always joke like we absorbed other agencies because people would leave and come here, and hopefully knock on wood, we're creating an environment where they don't want to leave, and go to other agencies. But sometimes that happens.
They'll tell their friends and be like, hey, like this is awesome. I love working here. And they'll attract their colleagues from other places. Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is most rough for me as a business owner is like not losing a client, but losing an employee. I'm like, where did we go wrong? What didn't we do? How can we improve? It's like, that's like harder than losing any client for some weird reason for me. But it happens, and you grow and move on.
Dean, last question. Thank you so much for your time on this. I always like book recommendations, audio book, physical book, and you always have great recommendations when it comes to that. And so I'd love to hear a few of your favorites. I know you had recommended to me Who Not How. And I listened to that with Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy. And actually funny, yesterday, I had Reed Tracy, who's the CEO president of Hay House, who actually is the publisher of that book. I didn't realize it at the time. So I brought up, what are some of the books? And he's like, oh, we did Who Not. I'm like, oh, that was recommended to me. Cool. What are some of your favorite business or leadership books that you like?
Cal Newport has a new one out. It's like The Death of I can't remember the title. It's like The Death of Email, which I think is super ironic. That we're talking about email marketing is this growth engine, and people are, but it's more about productivity in the workplace, and getting away from emails and back to like memos in a sense, and thinking long and procedurally about things versus reacting to things. He estimates that like you could save hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year if you can, get better at not doing email.
Well, I mean, that's, Slack has proven that, and some of the other tools with internal communication with teams for sure.
Yeah. Honestly, I stopped reading a lot of like leadership books and have the last few years got really into biographies of leaders, because I feel like you find little tidbits of informations and like little sayings and strategies and the way they implemented things. Benjamin Franklin is my favorite biography. He was a master at business and politics and science. I always think of like America as like him, like he's like the go-to person, but he's got some really good business stuff in there where he talks about his competing with other publishers, and he's got like, there's just some crazy stories. He pretended to work at another publishing house that was competing with him under an anonymous name. And, got so popular on purpose, then ended up switching to his publishing house so that other company would crash. I was like, holy shit. Like, sorry. But anyways, I just read the Barack Obama biography, which I thought was really good. I had some good leadership tips in there and strategies. So I like stories, and sometimes the business books are often repetitive. I find, whereas the biographies, you're like, this scenario sounds really interesting. How could it apply to me?
Yeah. Yeah. Check out, thank you for that recommendation. Check out biographies, check out worthecommerce.com and Relationship Commerce Podcast. Dean, I want to be the first one to thank you. This was fantastic. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.